Donald Trump is panicking as a U.S. plane was shot down in the Middle East. Let me repeat that. A U.S. plane was shot down in the Middle East, and you're likely not hearing about that any place other than here on the Midas Touch network. Also, 2 nuclear facilities in the Middle East exploded. One under drone attack. The other, the country claims, it just combusted in a controlled detonation, and that mushroom cloud was pre-planned. Don't worry, we'll break down what happened there. And then also a Venezuelan oil depot also spontaneously combusted in the past 48 hours. And I put spontaneously combusted in quotes because there's probably other explanations for what's going on there. Also, the U.S. is creating a false pretext to justify an invasion of Cuba, saying Cuba is threatening Florida with 300 drones. Even the local Florida sheriffs have no clue what the United States is even talking about because they were not alerted that there was a drone threat, and you would think they would know about that. Also, I'm going to do an entire other video on the successful Ukrainian drone and ballistic strikes in Moscow. I'm not going to focus on that in this video because we know what's going on. Zelensky's talking about it publicly, that he's been able to successfully strike oil depots in Moscow. He calls it long-range sanctions and other infrastructure in Moscow, one of the most heavily fortified and guarded areas with air defense there, not being able to stop the Ukrainian drones. But I want to focus on the cover-up, okay? So what's Donald Trump doing? He wants to distract. He is a WMD, a weapon of mass distraction. So all night into the morning, he's making posts like this, Space Force AI memes, and it looks like he's pressing a button that will unleash nuclear weapons in Iran and countries like that. That's how Donald Trump projects that he's tough, or he'll do AI memes of Governor Pritzker, and he'll be like Dumb and Dumber. He'll do photos of himself with aliens walking around, these AI images of him and aliens, because he wants you to go, oh my God, let's not pay attention to what's actually happening in the world, like nuclear facilities under attack, an American plane being hit. What are you doing? Are we doing a photo with an alien? More photos of him in Space Force, more stupid posts about reflecting pools, more posts where he does AI images of drones shooting the Iran Navy, which he claims doesn't exist. And he goes, bye-bye fast boats, laser, bing, 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 bing. Okay. But now let's talk about what's really happening. Push his distraction aside and let's talk about the U.S. plane being shot down in the Middle East. According to Open Source Intelligence Monitor, OSINT Defender, Open Source Intelligence Defender, wreckage visible is circulating in photos and videos. Let's pull up these videos right now that clearly show a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone, one of these drone planes that the U.S. uses. So Open Source Intelligence Defender said that the drone was carrying several AGM-11 4R9X Hellfire missiles, known as the Flying Jinsus, for their blade deployment warhead designed to kill without an explosive blast. The U.S. military has not confirmed the loss. They're covering it up. Over 40 MQ-9 Reapers, each worth approximately $30 million, have been lost to Iran or Yemeni forces since late 2023. At least 24 downed over Iran and 20 by the Houthis in Yemen, representing a loss over $1 billion. We're seeing in Iranian media and regional media outlets, not in the United States, in the Middle East, including Iran Fars news agency. They're reporting this downing of the U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone over Yemen's Marib province, the key oil and gas region located in north-central Yemen. You see what this drone on fire looks like. Again, the claim and the footage has not been confirmed by CENTCOM, but they've been covering up everything. Remember, over the weekend, I shared videos with you from congressional hearings that, again, aren't being shown, I think, in a lot of other places, where these admirals and naval leaders and army officers and leaders of EUCOM and CENTCOM and AFRICOM, they're talking about how currently and the head of one of the top leaders in the Pentagon, they're talking about how there's ongoing attacks right now in the Strait of Hormuz, that the war is still going on. There's not really a ceasefire, is what they confirmed. So we have the U.S. airplane down, the MQ-9 Reaper shot down. No one's talking about it. Saudi Arabia's defense ministry confirms that 3 drones entered the kingdom's airspace from Iraq. They claim they were intercepted and destroyed Sunday morning, but we know the Saudi Ministry of Defense, the UAE Ministry of Defense, all these Ministry of Defenses in the Middle East tend to lie about the outcomes. Let's talk about what the official statement was from the Defense Ministry in Saudi Arabia. The official spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense, Major General Turk al-Maliki, stated that on the morning of Sunday, corresponding with May 17th, 3 drones were intercepted and destroyed after entering the kingdom's airspace, coming from Iraqi airspace. Major General al-Maliki affirmed that the Ministry of Defense reserves the right to respond at the appropriate time and place and will take and implement all necessary operational measures to respond to any attempt to infringe on the kingdom's sovereignty, security, and the safety of its citizens and residents on its territory. United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense confirmed 3 drone strikes on its nuclear power plant. It says that 3 drones were targeting it. They claim they were able to stop 2, but they say that 1 was able to hit this nuclear facility, this nuclear power plant. Fire and rescue services in Abu Dhabi were responding yesterday morning to a drone strike and fire that resulted in a fire inside an electrical generator outside the inner perimeter of the Baraka nuclear power plant in the Al Dhafra region of the UAE. Authorities report no injuries and state that there has been no impact to radiological safety levels or the operation of the Baraka nuclear complex, but that's to be determined. So we know that's going on. Also, a massive explosion was reported in the Sdat Mika Air Base in Beit Shemesh, Israel. And it was reported, this is one of their facilities that people believe to be their nuclear storage sites. Residents heard a loud blast. They saw a huge mushroom cloud. Khan News then claimed, Israeli propaganda then claimed, oh, this was just a controlled explosion at a civilian factory. A controlled explosion at a civilian factory with a gigantic mushroom cloud, and you don't tell anybody from the community it's going to happen. What? So it's just like, surprise, nuclear mushroom clouds, everybody. Unclear what the radiological fallout is there. But again, that facility is where it's believed that there are the nuclear weapons of Israel. So we've got that also. Another energy facility, this time in Venezuela, just exploded. This has been like the 14th non-combat energy incident outside of like the middle, like since the war began. It's the Lamargas compression plant on Lake Maracaibo. It suddenly caught fire during a, quote, routine gas depressurization operation. 6 workers injured, 2 jumped into the lake to escape the flames. The pattern of oil and gas facilities worldwide exploding or catching fire since the war on Iran continues. People are saying, there's no missiles, there's no drones, just another accident of critical energy facility infrastructure, just spontaneously blowing up. That's what you get. And then, as I said at the beginning, the U.S. creating a pretext to invade Cuba, the United States government using Axios, one of their, giving you my opinion, one of the main regime propaganda conduits. They often use Barack Ravid over there, in my opinion, in order to push narratives that, in my opinion, move and manipulate the market dramatically. Here's what Axios reported yesterday. Cuba has acquired more than 300 military drones and recently began discussing plans to use them to attack the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay, military vessels, and possibly Key West, 90 miles north of Havana, exclusive on what the Trump administration is thinking. I'll tell you what the sheriff's department for the Florida Keys had to say. No changes in light of the Cuba-related news report. Monroe County Sheriff Rick Ramsey has not been contacted by any federal or state authorities regarding news reports Sunday of any possible military action taken by Cuba against the United States. And here's what the Cuban embassy in the United States said, or it's the Cuban embassy. They go, like any country, Cuba has the right to defend itself against external aggression. It is called self-defense, and it is protected by international law and the UN Charter. Those from the U.S. who seek submission and, in fact, the destruction of the Cuban nation through military aggression and war do not waste a single moment fabricating pretexts, creating and spreading falsehoods, and distorting as extraordinary the logical preparations required to face a potential aggression. The Cuban embassy in the UK says Axios fabricates a drone threat, only to confess paragraphs later U.S. officials don't believe Cuba is actively planning to attack. This contradictory information is a transparent, ludicrous pretext to justify U.S. hostility. We categorically reject these baseless smears. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez says Cuba neither threatens nor desires war, adding that the U.S. is building a fraudulent case to justify the ruthless economic war against the Cuban people and eventual military aggression, which makes you also question, are some of these other attacks that we're seeing false flags that are being used by the U.S. to create a pretext for further invasion, whether it's not just Cuba, but whether it's also of Iran, to resume hostilities? Because, as I reported, the UAE nuclear plant was attacked by drones. They say, could this be Iran drones? But this comes at the same time where Trump aides are urging the UAE to deepen its role in the Iran war, including demanding that UAE send ground troops instead of the U.S. to seize Iran's strategic Lavon Island. The Telegraph and others are reporting. So Trump's inner circle are encouraging the UAE, take a more aggressive role, put your ground troops in, go and take them, an official told the Telegraph, saying, let's get some UAE boots on the ground instead of the U.S. It also should be noted as an aside that Donald Trump, over the past 2 weeks, unveiled what he claims will be a new skyscraper in Dubai. And if you get a room, if you buy an apartment in the skyscraper, you also get a free 10-year golden visa to live in the United States, which is illegal in my opinion, and it's not actually going to happen. But that's what they're claiming. They say it will measure 1,150 feet with a swimming pool at the top, and it'll start at $1 million, although we saw the Trump organization often makes these statements, and then it turns out that the building never happens. But I think it's important to share with you, just in addition to Donald Trump doing 60 stock trades a day in the first quarter alone for a total of 3,700 stock trades of companies that he deals with and talks about. He's personally invested in NVIDIA and Dell and all of Boeing and all these companies that he does business with. I think it's worth pointing out 60 trades a day. On Iranian TV, they're airing a segment teaching the public how to handle a firearm, and they end the segment by firing at a UAE flag. Iranian officials say Iran is fully prepared to seize the coastline of the UAE and Bahrain if the UAE attempts to invade and seize the Iranian-controlled islands in the Persian Gulf. This is Iran's direct response to Trump regime officials telling the UAE to invade Iran and seize Lavon Island. Go take them. It would be UAE boots on the ground, are what Trump officials are saying to the Telegraph, as I just read. So then you have some of these Trump regime MAGA Republicans In the House of Representatives, they're talking about, oh, I guess we need to invade Cuba now, especially as, a lot of these MAGA Republican Cuban Congress members have betrayed their people. Latino support of Trump is about 25% right now. He's tanked his approval amongst the Latino community after his ICE raids and his racist behavior, in my opinion. So you have Congress member Mario Diaz-Balart. Congress member Diaz-Balart says, we've seen the threat drones pose in the Middle East. Now they are 90 miles from our shores and near critical infrastructure. It's clear the Cuban regime is a national security threat. MAGA Congress member Carlos Jimenez, the regime in Cuba poses a dangerous national security threat to the United States of America. Congresswoman Salazar, the world has already seen what hostile regimes can do with drones, and those capabilities in the hands of the Cuban regime, just 90 miles from Florida, should concern every American. A dictatorship aligned with American adversaries operating this close to our shores is not to be trusted. So the Trump regime puts a blockade on Cuba, starves the people to death. And again, regardless of what you think about the Cuban regime, the Trump regime are making people in Cuba suffer. They're targeting the people who live in Cuba. But the Trump regime does allow Russian ships to break the blockade, but prevents ships from Mexico and Canada from getting past the U.S. blockade of Cuba. So the Russian ship brings supplies, brings oil, and my guess probably also brings drones and weapons. And now Cuba's saying, if you attack us, we're going to have to defend ourselves. So then the U.S. oh my God, they're going to invade us. And the local sheriff there is like, we haven't heard any threat that's being posed to us. And we would think that the sheriff's department would know about this. Okay, folks, alert, alert, alert. Barack Ravid from Axios. He's out with the new banger. Here's what Ravid says. This guy's so pathetic. Trump just told me he still thinks Iran wants a deal, and said he's waiting for an updated Iranian proposal. One he said he hopes will be better than the last offer given several days ago. He declined giving a specific deadline for the negotiations with Iran. Barack Ravid also says, Trump tells me clock is ticking for Iran and warns of more massive U.S. military attacks. Trump told me, Barack Ravid says, this guy's such a clown. We want to make a deal. They are not where we want them to be. They will have to get there or they will be hit badly. And they don't want that. The clock is ticking. He then reposts this from Neria Krause. Trump just told me in a phone call, I think the Iranians should be afraid of what's going on right now. Then he says, Trump is expected to convene his senior national security team on Tuesday in the White House Situation Room to discuss options for military actions against Iran. Two American officials said, I think the one thing that's probably also preventing Donald Trump from doing what would be absolutely horrific is the UFC fights coming up for America's 250th, and we have the FIFA games, and Donald Trump doesn't want to be embarrassed at the FIFA games. So that's like one of the things that I think, is perhaps preventing him from further invading Iran, but we'll see. Then Donald Trump called up Israel's Channel 13, and Donald Trump says, I think the Iranians should be afraid of what's going on right now. Ooh, Donald, are you making them scared? Iran's parliament spokesperson for the National Security Commission, Abraham Razai, writes, Trump can't do a damn thing right, and the next war will disgrace and humiliate him even more. Returning to war may have its damages, but the enemy will certainly suffer more, much more. Meanwhile, the Trump regime is sending in Jeff Landry, the Louisiana governor. This guy's a crazy guy. This MAGA psycho, Jeff Landry from Louisiana, who Donald Trump made his special envoy to Greenland. And he was the one who came out with statements, we're going to make Greenland a 51st state. We're going to take over Greenland. And so Landry showed up in Greenland yesterday, and he had a message for Greenland. Here's what he said.
Impressions of Greenland?
Oh, I love it. Yes. Yeah, it's great.
Do you have a message from President Trump with you?
Actually, I do. I talked to him late last night. He said, go over there and make a bunch of friends, as many friends as we can.
And more from Landry. Here's what he said as well. Let's play it.
The Greenlanders are a little nervous about what your intentions are. If it's still to acquire Greenland, what do you say to that?
Oh, no, look, I'm here simply to build relationships and to look and listen and to learn and to see if there are opportunities to expand the relationship between Greenland and the United States and Denmark. And so, it's a great day. I'm excited, really am.
Now, with all of this going on, it's creating so much market instability. On Sunday night, the U.S. 10-year Treasury note yield hit 4.63%. We are now 4 basis points above the high that prompted Trump's 90-day tariff pause in April 2025. This puts the 10-year note yield up 70 basis points since the Iran war, with U.S. mortgage rates now nearing 7%. And in a sudden turn of events, the odds of interest rate cuts have collapsed to only 2% this year, and U.S. inflation is nearing 4%. The 30-year Treasury yield is over 5%, 5.15%. These are numbers that are worse than what happened during the Great Recession. So Trump's got to manipulate the markets a little bit. So the White House, not a little bit, a lot of bit. So on Sunday night, Donald Trump announces the creation of the U.S.-China Board of Trade and Investment, aimed at improving bilateral economic ties, with one forum focused on non-sensitive trade and the other on investment issues. So as Donald got 0 deals from the trip to China, gave away everything to China, allowed Xi Jinping to say America is a nation in decline to Donald Trump's face, and have Donald Trump say, yes, Xi, whatever you say, Xi, you do tell me, Xi. As Donald Trump threw Taiwan under the bus and looked so utterly pathetic, Donald Trump's now going to create a board of trade. Maybe that will manipulate the market. I don't know. I just don't think it's going to anymore. I think the market's numb to all of his market manipulation. Oh, and one of the things that the White House said that Donald Trump wants to do now after the meeting with China, to focus on denuclearizing North Korea. Trump said, we have a shared goal to denuclearize North Korea. I'm not sure that's a goal that is shared by China. Also, just think about Donald. It's just like the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump allowed Kim Jong-un to get nuclear weapons, right? We saw in the first term what happened. Trump wrote him love letters. They wrote each other love letters. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un built nuclear weapons. And now Donald Trump's like, now we want to work towards denuclearization. He creates the problem. He's the arsonist. And then he's like, now I want to put out the fire. And then he blames the people who he leaves holding the bag, who try to put out the fire, and tries to say they're the arsonist. But because corporate news is owned by a bunch of right-wing oligarchs, they often go along with it. It's why Midas Touch Network is coming along is so important right there. And same thing with the Strait of Hormuz. We won Epic Fury. How do we win Epic Fury? Well, we gave Iran the Strait of Hormuz, which is genius because now people will buy oil from the United States. That's not the way international oil markets work, Donald. What are you talking about? But now we're going to be launching Operation Sledgehammer, not Midnight Hammer. That was last June. We're doing Sledgehammer right now. All right, so Donald, what's the goal of Sledgehammer? To open up the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, you closed it and you declared victory, and now you're saying you want to open it, and then that's what we're going to do. It was always closed before. It was closed under Biden. It was closed under Obama, and it was weaponized then. Now it's not weaponized because they know how strong I am. No, it was open under Biden and Obama. It was never even a thing that Iran would control the Strait of Hormuz until you lost the war in Iran. Fake news, fake news. I'm going to criminally investigate you. You're under criminal investigation. You're a fraud. You're a fake person. I'm going to post memes of feces in a reflecting pool. That's what we're dealing with, folks. This is what we're dealing with. This is what the reflecting pool really looks like right now. It's 50 shades of blue, as Aaron Parnas writes. Look how gross it looks right now. Everything Trump touches dies. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.